Hello, and welcome to episode 14 of the Humble Pursuit Podcast. I am Bill, joined in studio with Thomas and Tyler. Good day, gentlemen.
Hey, it's an afternoon.
Morning.
Is it morning still?
8 minutes.
Good noon.
Excellent. And we have guest number 6, and it's a female. Her name is Leah Graves. Welcome.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Nice to be here.
Happy to have you.
I was telling you before, you're basically going to be doing a podcast with 3 12-year-old boys.
It's all right.
So just be prepared. You asked what our roles are. My role is to try to make fun of these guys as much as they make fun of me. Thomas's role is to call me old all the time. And Tyler's role is to be the nice guy.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's the roles. That's what we do.
That sounds right.
Right.
Is that about right?
That sounds right, yeah.
Excellent. You know, before we have guests on, one thing I like to do is kind of go into a little bit of internet research to find out a quote that reminds me of that guest. And I found one last night. And the quote is, "I have found a paradox that if you love until it hurts, there can be no more hurt, only more love." That was said by Mother Teresa. And that quote reminds me of Leah, just because the loving, giving heart that you have that just comes over and over and over again, the last full measure of love that you're willing to give to anybody. So this is supposed to start relaxing you because we're in the relaxing stage, so don't be nervous. And
Well, Billy, what if I tell you that when I asked one of my best friends what she would say about me being on a podcast, she said, "Do they know that your nickname is Pistol?" So I'm not sure that kind of goes with Mother Teresa, Pistol. I don't know.
It can be the same.
it's probably the same thing.
Okay.
It's probably
okay.
the same thing.
Okay.
That's probably her nickname too, and we just don't even know it yet. Before we really get in, we exclude Thomas in this because he is a party pooper, and Tyler and I like to ask some icebreaker questions.
Okay.
So this is totally to relax you and everything else. Tyler, go.
Oh, well, thanks. Man, this came to mind. We're going to talk probably a little bit about foster care. If you could, right now, just adopt a kid and you could name them anything, and it didn't have to be culturally appropriate or anything, like what just crazy name would you name them?
Pistol.
Actually, I think that's pretty appropriate. I really like the spicy kids, so Pistol would probably be a pretty good one. Let's go with Pistol.
Nice.
Pistol Junior.
There you go.
Who is your favorite Disney princess?
I don't have one.
Who's your
Like
favorite?
you don't like any, or they're all
You don't like them?
amazing?
Well, when I was a kid, I think my favorite Disney movie was The Little Mermaid. But I wasn't like super.
You were a
drawn.
kid
We-
when
Yeah.
Little Mermaid was out? Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
We
Okay,
watched it
bring-
on VHS.
Okay, bring your
Yes,
old person
same.
joke because I was not a kid.
Well, I think
when
Snow
Little...
White was when you were a kid. I
Yeah,
think Snow White
absolutely.
came
It
out,
was,
so-
it was a new
yeah.
release, and then Color came
I
about.
will say that's like the third Ariel we've had.
Yeah. What was yours? I can't remember. Aurora.
Aurora.
And I don't even know what movie that's from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Your favorite superhero?
The Hulk.
The Hulk.
Howard
That's Thomas. That
That
Thomas.
was mine too.
Excellent.
Nice.
If you had a boat, what would you name it?
I get seasick on boats, so I wouldn't have a boat.
Name it the Hurl and Puke. And
So
lastly,
What'd you name your boat? We never talked
you
about
know,
that yet.
okay, so here's the deal. Apparently, if you Google naming a boat on the internet, it comes up with some mumbo jumbo about it being bad mojo to rename a boat. And so I have yet to find out what the boat's previous name was, but my wife is pretty insistent that I am not allowed to name it.
Oh,
So-
like somebody else gets to name it? One of the kids?
Whoever named it previously. Is that you? Did you really not turn your
Oh,
sound
wow.
on?
So apparently do not disturb.
Excuses,
work?
excuses.
Joey Garinger, a previous guest, apparently has some unlock code to get through do not disturb.
Nice.
He's a
That's
powerful
all.
man.
So anyway, I don't know what we're naming our boat yet, but we do have a boat. And then the very last question: what is your favorite pizza topping?
Ooh, mushrooms.
Nice.
Fungus.
Yeah, I really
Nice.
like
Fungus.
mushrooms.
You like
I
fungus?
do.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Add mushrooms to anything, almost anything, and it's better.
I like this. This is going well. This is good.
I just threw up in my mouth just a little bit right there. Just right there. I just
Really,
did.
they're good for you.
No, they're not. They're fungus. They're fungus. There's certain things
They're
we should eat.
anti-aging.
They're anti-aging fungus.
There you
Yeah.
Hint.
See, Bill?
I believe in God's natural order, and in His natural order, I will age and not eat fungus. Okay.
Fair enough.
So, are you relaxed and chill?
Sure.
Yeah, super. Well, the floor is pretty much yours to go where you want. Let's just start. Where are you from? Where'd you
Yeah.
grow up?
Well, I originally grew up in Kansas City.
KC.
Yeah, just south of Kansas City in a small town called Spring Hill, Kansas. Back when it was a teeny tiny population, our family of 7 increased it from like 600 to 607 when we moved there.
Nice.
Yeah. Then after that, I moved to Manhattan to go to school. And then we ended up living there for almost 12 years before we moved to Salina.
Okay, so when you went to Manhattan to go to school, was that just high school or
No, for college.
for college?
Interesting sidebar.
There is
We
college.
had all these
Oh.
different circles
Oh, this is crazy.
that have how many?
So a
5
lot.
or 6 circles overlapped. We never met each other, but everybody that we knew each other.
So
Yeah.
in school, you were in school at the same.
Yeah,
K-State.
Same time.
Yep, at the same time. And we didn't know that until about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
his wife, same thing.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay,
So
and so you
there's-
went to K-State.
Mhm.
Did you get a degree?
I did.
And what is that degree?
Yeah, I graduated with an independent study in personal family finance and community service.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And not to pry, I mean, again,
for it.
I used Google to find out what you are and aren't supposed to ask female guests, and it says to ask them their age and their weight.
Okay.
But I'm not going to ask you those two things because I think that maybe Thomas did something to my computer. But what year did you graduate college?
04.
04.
I'm about to be 40, which is really exciting. I'm like super excited about
too.
being 40.
Oh,
I don't know if that's weird, but I'm really excited about being 40.
okay. And now, did you? So you graduated in Manhattan, then you ended up in Salina.
Yeah, actually, we stayed in Manhattan for quite a few years after that. We came
No, you
here in
said
Yeah,
we.
you said
2011.
we.
You said
Who's
we.
we?
So who's
Oh.
we? Did you meet that handsome man in Manhattan?
I
You
definitely
did?
did. Yes, I definitely did. I met my husband Jason my senior year, his junior year of college.
Oh, so you went for the younger
I
guys.
did.
Nice.
I'm so thankful.
Nice.
Yeah,
We
I
got a
did.
cougar in that house.
Was that right there under asking their weight
Yeah, is that
and
one
their
coming
age?
next?
Is
think
to
that
call
was
them
over.
cougar?
I
Is
think
like
that
do
was
that
over.
next? Okay.
It was on Google, so I don't know. I'm
We're
saying-
going to edit this for appropriate comments.
No, there's no editing.
Okay.
You can edit out the clap at the beginning. So you met Jason in college. You guys hung out in Manhattan. What prompted you guys to come to Salina, Kansas?
Yeah, actually, Jason took a job with K-State, so our alma mater. He took a job with K-State that brought us to Salina. So he is a research and extension agent for the state of Kansas in the degree of horticulture. So he answers questions about basically a doctor to people's plants, trees, grasses, things like that. So I know I like to grow kids, and he likes to grow green things. So that's how we kind of come together.
It's a good team.
Yeah,
So-
it's a great team.
Right.
Yeah.
I've utilized his services.
Has anybody not? Thomas, have you not asked Jason a question about green things?
No, yes, I have asked him a lot.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't ask him a question about green things. I ask him when they turn brown, how to get them
Oh,
back
how
to
to get
green.
them green again? Nice.
That's
Everybody
what
has
I
their
like.
lane. That's all right.
Yes.
So here at the Humble Pursuit Podcast, we really like to dive into those never quit, never settle moments along with living life with urgency. I don't think that we can get to the next part of your story,
Yeah.
which is going to be your children,
Yeah.
without saying where we're going and where we're gonna focus on the living life with urgency and your passion. So how did that come about? Tell us about your children.
Yeah, actually, I think I'd like to back up with that in mind. My years in college actually really set the stage for a lot of my chapters now that definitely include Mr. Graves. But when I first went to college, I was there studying management information systems. I love to organize people and information in really efficient and effective ways. And while I was in that degree, I began noticing that my interacting with people wasn't really received very well. And it sent me back to asking a lot of questions about myself and revisiting my why for college, which then led me to my degree in community service and family studies. And that process for me was really different because I grew up in a small private school. And most of my friends were men. Like in my class, I didn't have a lot of females. And so in my journey at college, I was placed on I had a oops as I was checking into college. My roommate was not who I thought it was going to be. I'm arriving at college and oops, they put my roommate with another Leah. That wasn't me. So I was in a potluck situation placed on the intensive study floor of my dorm, which neither of those things were me. But that rearrangement, that surprise, that accidental oops ended up being the most amazing thing. It set me on a floor with tons of girls my age that were walking with the Lord and were just very similar to me. And that began a trajectory of me learning how to have female relationships that were vibrant and healthy and honest and real. It's also where I got my nickname Pistol.
We don't call those oopses though. We call those God's intervention.
Yeah,
God
absolutely.
knew
It's
what you
definitely so that experience and learning to see what is possible with female relationships that are authentic and real and intentional, it totally changed the trajectory of my life. And it gave me a taste for something. And as I began to, I actually sought out some help of some of my professors who were noticing that some of my papers in my classes were about processing this new discovery of what female relationships can create community. And they helped me design an independent study of just learning about women and women working together and what that can create and what are the hindrances to female relationships. And there's a lot that can get in the way, and that's maybe a not for a podcast full of men. But that partnership of a degree in family studies and community service. Thank you. Closer to the mic is what my...
to hear you, so he wants you to move up.
Closer to the mic is what my note said. Yes, sir. Sir.
Yes, sir.
But that partnership that some of my professors helped me create of working with community-minded initiatives as well as bringing together vibrant female relationships, that set me on a trajectory. After college, I had just met Jason. So I'm about to graduate and I just met Jason and I wasn't even looking for anything. And I meet Jason and he's not done with school. And so what to do in that interim time where there's a new relationship budding and I really liked him. I was offered a job at an OBGYN practice to manage all the non-medical employees. And that place, I grew up so much. Managing a group of women in topics of all sorts of sensitive things with women's bodies and infertility and pregnancy and even mental health, as well as learning. I'm brand new out of college and I am commissioned to lead women that are significantly older than myself and how to do that and how to do that well. It was a trial and error, but God really shaped a whole bunch of things in my life in those years. Yes.
There's a tractor or something going by
Oh,
outside.
nice.
He gets distracted.
He wanted
easily.
to.
There's a squirrel.
He wanted to come and see.
Squirrel.
He wanted a break from harvest.
Yes.
So anyways, that was a significant shift in my life that God has used in significant ways in my life just as a person, but then also my life as a leader. I learned to, I can't lead unless I learn first. So in being a brand new college student, I didn't really feel like I had the permission to lead somebody who'd been working in these fields for so long. And so I began as a mentee. I was technically their boss, but began as a mentee to learn from them and gain their trust and their respect before I could really technically lead them. And then fast forward, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Jason and I obviously ended up getting married. I became Mrs. Graves, which is my honor. And we had our oldest, who is now 14. But then I could not have predicted that I would be working at an OBGYN practice while I would go through 2 more very scary pregnancies that ended in emergency surgeries to save my own life and unfortunately not the lives of my 2 little ones. But also while I worked there, we had a professional relationship with a crisis pregnancy center. And the director of that crisis pregnancy center would bring in young moms that were, choosing to keep their little one and working with, we had a doctor that did free care for crisis pregnancies. And in watching that professional relationship of that director with these moms, her style was unbelievable. It was a way of seeing these young ladies that set them up for success no matter what their choice was. It wasn't dependent on the next step. It was just a committed relationship to them. And I soaked in how she treated those couples or those young ladies. And when Jason and I were going through some of our emergency surgery things, we decided after the first one that we would start the process of becoming adoptive parents if possible. And
what year is this about?
this would have been 2008. Our oldest was born in 2007, and we went through 2 emergency situations in 2008. And in between those 2, we started the process of becoming an adoptive parent. So that really means you start working with a social worker. They come in and they interview you. They say, hey, what do you do for a living? What's your house look like? What's your neighborhood look like? Basically, they write a thesis on who you are and what you're up to in life.
Right. So can I ask,
Sure.
You had these painful pregnancies that didn't end how you wanted them to. As you got introduced to the idea of adoption, I mean, you'd already known all about it, but was there ways that people, did you come to this conclusion, this is the path we're going to go on your own? Was there somebody who walked you towards that?
Oh,
was
good
there
question.
good
Yeah.
ways people introduced the idea, if it was introduced, or poor ways?
Yeah, actually, the idea was in our brains before we even got married. I grew up traveling. My parents were amazing at taking me places. And so seeing different cultures and ethnicities and the importance of community, the gift that my parents gave me of traveling significantly opened my eyes to, we typically were traveling in like poverty places. So you saw kids and what their lives looked like when there weren't resources surrounding them. So I just grew up with an awareness. I had family members that were adopted. So adoption was kind of it's unusual for the older generation to have it be so open, but in my life, it was an open topic. I saw tricky things about it as well as beautiful things about adoption. So I grew up with that, just knowing I really was attracted to not knowing that I would one day not be able to have kiddos, but that dream was there. It was a part of our premarital counseling. It was a part of our journey before we even became Mr. and Mrs. Graves. So the fact that it turned that way was kind of, I don't know, maybe even serendipitous. But what I had learned in going through I guess the infertility process, I was still leading and serving. One of my jobs was I was the liaison for every single pregnant person in our practice, which we were the only practice there in Manhattan. So even while I was learning that I was not able to have kiddos anymore, I was still spending time, significant time, and it was God's work in me that allowed me to find the joy in the middle of the processing what was happening in my own life, and to be able to still have a perspective of what God was up to in other people's lives. And it actually took me back to some of my research in college of learning that one of the things that gets between female relationships is comparison. And so in the middle of infertility, in the middle of adoption, in the middle of friends getting pregnant, and even crisis pregnancies, having young ones that don't have all the right stuff, being able to get pregnant, you still see that God is up to something, and it doesn't have to be equals or fairsies. I just made that word up.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say.
I like that.
I was still stuck on the word serendipitous.
Okay. Is that?
Don't try to use it, Bill.
That's
It's
5
gonna-
syllables.
That exceeds
I
the
don't know.
maximum.
But what I love about what you're saying is that ultimately that was still a choice at your point to see it that way, because you could have internalized all that and say, "Oh, woe is me. This is the end of the road. This is not what I expected. This is what." But you didn't choose to go down that. You chose to look at it as an opportunity. You chose to say, God is still working in me. There's still things that can be done, instead of just coming up, like hitting a wall and saying, God's abandoned me, or our family's not going to ever be complete, or whatever you would be. You looked at it as an opportunity, and that's a choice. And I think that's a commendable.
The mind is a powerful thing, and we talked about this a little bit last week with a guy who's going through MAP classes right now to start foster care. He's just about done. But once you flip that switch in your mind, whatever it is, if you flip that switch, you're going that direction.
Yeah.
And whatever's in your way, it doesn't matter. You're going to get through it.
Yeah.
And so you go through that. When did you do your first adoption?
Oh, that's an amazing story. So we finished up all of our paperwork, and
It's a mountain of paperwork for
it is.
adoption.
It
a
is.
mountain.
yeah, and they tell you that the waiting process for a private adoption could be years. So you kind of settle in like, okay, this is going to take a while. But we turned in our paperwork, and we got a call 10 days later.
Oh my God.
Like, I had just got adult braces the day before, thinking, okay, we'll get this bite issue out of the way before, maybe we adopt in 2 years or something. So I looked like I was 12 years old and she was 8 months pregnant. And those weeks of partnering with her and her boyfriend were, oh my gosh, it just created a love of all sides of a unique and awkward story that was, it's still one of my favorite things on the planet. So, Jaylee was born in March of 2009.
2009.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I never did. Technically, we did one private adoption, and that was only because the judge took the child out of foster care prior to the adoption. But basically, all of our adoptions were done through foster care. So you adopt in 2009. Amazing story. You get to see all sides of it. I love that because I don't know about you. Well, I know about Thomas. I have zero compassion. It's like a negative in me. But once I can see something and really see it, I can feel something. And so that gave you a unique perspective on the process of adoption. And you weren't done there, right?
No.
No? Okay. So fast forward how long?
Well, after Jaylee's adoption, we actually moved to Salina. And,
Okay, so that was in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Okay.
And let's see here. We moved to Salina in January of 2010, and 2011, January 2011. Jason had started about 6 months before that. but was traveling back and forth. So we finally found a house. It's hard to find a house here. And by the way, since we're talking about Salina, I cried so much when we moved here.
Why?
Oh, seriously, it needs to be on record. I drove around this place in my little Honda Pilot while Jason was at some of his initial meetings. And
In January.
Oh, yeah. No, this would have been earlier. This would have been fall, like September, October, November, somewhere in there. And I'm like, does anybody care about like the master planning of these streets? They don't even work. There's like 5-person intersections and like some of them go over railroads. And I found myself on East Crawford. And I parked myself and I was crying and I was like, nobody even cares about anything beautiful. Nothing makes sense in this town. Like you're driving on people's porches. It was kind of traumatic. I've totally changed my tune though. We can talk. I really love Salina.
Leah, most of our audience is from Salina.
I know, but
Like 90.
the whole point was that.
But that's okay.
Tyler.
We lost them all.
Yeah, we don't
The
need
whole
to
point is that I'm
They're gone.
saying I've changed my tune. I love Salina. And the reason why I love Salina is because I grew up in Kansas City. Okay, so this is my background. Can't help it. This is where I came from. I grew up in Kansas City and then lived for 12 years in Manhattan. And those two places, they have education and money primarily. And they don't need people as much. I never even knew that until moving to Salina and neighbors like caring about you. Like you build a relationship with your neighbors. You like are friends with people that you don't go to church with. Like and then we moved here in January. And by the second week that we lived here, we visited a church. And that pastor adopted a private adoption that week.
Oh, wow.
And that was Meadow People, which is the very beginning, which is something we're going to talk about later. But that literally is 2 weeks into living here, you meet a family and they adopted their little one through the same crisis pregnancy center as we adopted our daughter Jaylee. So then you're meeting somebody that has the same story and is learning about being a fabulous adoptive mama and papa and how to have a vibrant relationship, a healthy relationship with their whole story. And you meet someone and you're like, it just solidifies, like God was up to something in that meeting. And by May of that year, a simple invitation to coffee at my house to these foster and adoptive mamas that we were meeting as we were visiting churches. I even tried out mops. I was horrible at mops. I was horrible at mops. I guess I didn't fit in there very well. But you
didn't make the cut.
I didn't make the cut. It was me, myself. They were awesome. But you meet all these families that are created and crafted by the topics of foster care and adoption. And just a simple invitation on a normal Sunday afternoon to come over for coffee, it was like nobody wanted to leave. Everybody wanted to stay. It's like the additional layers of parenting kiddos that don't necessarily come from your gene pool. Mm-hmm. It's different. It's not better and it's not worse than having a child or a family naturally. It's just different.
I'd agree with that.
The responsibility and the perplexities, the complexities are just different. And so that energy for those mamas to want to be together was so significant that by that fall, so only by 6 months later, we actually named the organization. It wasn't even an organization then, but we named ourselves the Blessed Hope Family. So we were a family before we had a name, which that just recently occurred to me, and how appropriate that is. I mean, it kind of just symbolizes what a kiddo's journey is when they don't have a steady family because of their story. So
that all transpired before you got into foster care?
Yes.
So then the next step on the journey was getting into foster care.
No, actually.
No? Okay.
Actually,
you're driving.
Yeah, well, actually, we were chosen again by a young couple through the Crisis Pregnancy Center that we worked with in Manhattan. And right before she was going to have a little guy, she changed her mind and decided to parent. And so that same week that she changed her mind, we were contacted about a pilot program that TFI at the time, TFI is just a licensing agency. There's different brands of licensing agencies, but at the time it was TFI, and they were doing a training course that met in your home on your schedule. It's kind of like the MAPS training class that your friend was taking. It's kind of like that, except it's called Deciding Together. And it was a pilot program that met in your home on your schedule, and you could accomplish your foster care classes in a smaller amount of time, which for an extension agent who doesn't have the same schedule every day, that was really helpful.
Nice.
So we had a door shut and a door open all at the same time. And
let me interject right there, because that's crazy. I was actually listening to a podcast this morning before I came here, and they just talked about the door shut, door open.
Yeah.
We get so fixated on that door that's shut in front of us, and all we can see is that door, and we can't even notice the one or the two doors that are sitting right
Wide
beside
open.
us,
Yeah.
wide open, ready for us to walk through.
Yeah.
Okay, so continue on to number 2, adoption.
Number 2, adoption.
Did you? So you did the classes?
Oh, yeah.
You're certified TFI.
Yeah. Well, what allowed us to navigate that door shut and door open was honestly the previous chapters before of navigating adoption, which is always awkward and unique. You never really know what's going to happen. But through those chapters, God really taught us about, we call it open hands, that living life with open hands rather than fists. Remember, my nickname is Pistol for reasons. Anybody that knows me well will probably chime in. They're going to put comments on here. But by living life with open hands, being willing to shape and mold and to have, I love the name of your podcast, The Humble Pursuit, because by being humble and having open hands, you're able to say yes and to walk through life not needing to control it, not needing to say, oh, we are going to do this and we're not going to do this. But by having open hands, it was hard to have it's usually called a failed adoption in foster circles, in adoption circles, but we didn't really see it as a failed adoption. We saw it as that young mama choosing what she knew was right for that little guy. And so it was painful to rearrange and not prepare for that, but yet then we get this open door, and it made it easy to say yes to going through those foster care classes. So we started through the foster care classes, and while we were in those foster care classes, there was a little one that a friend had known about that was going to need foster home. And we actually were gifted a temporary or it's called an emergency license, where we're in classes, but they give us a license to be foster parents a little bit early. Well, funny thing, as we got that, the situation fizzled, and we didn't need to provide care for that little one. But it also got us a phone call for our very first foster baby, who was 1 at the time, actually just before she turned 2. And we said yes to that little one, and began the journey of being a foster parent, which is absolutely awkward and unique, and you can't really it's even hard to describe it. It's just indescribable. Yeah, it is very, like they come into your home and everything smells different. Your laundry detergent smells different. Your foods are weird. I remember she kept asking for candy, and I'm thinking, candy, okay, like here's some Skittles or M&Ms. No. She was looking for orange slices, like clementines. Yes. That's what she was looking for. She called those candy. So you can't really predict, like their language is different. How they describe things is different. Their network of how to have relationships is different. So everything was all new. And that is, it was because of some of our other chapters of adopting our daughter Jaylee, and building a relationship with her mom and dad, that's still continuing. We we really loved the awkwardness of building a relationship with our little one's biological family. So as they're, going through the case plan, which is like the plan set out by the judicial system of what they need to do to make a home safe for that little one, it was like falling into suit for us to jump into that awkward relationship with her family and to just be alongside them and to go to court with them. And I remember one court hearing, she showed up and she had not done anything to take care of herself. So it was like, let's go to the bathroom and let's like fix this. Like let's help you. We're making some big decisions here. And anyways, I just loved that. The awkwardness, the weirdness, the uniqueness of it.
Love that.
Is I just found that that's where I thrived in that. I feel like that those stories are where I fit. The polished ones weren't where I fit. And so it kind of just kept setting the stage for us to say yes. But interestingly enough, that kiddo, our first one, is our third child. A couple years after that, her family relinquished rights in order for us to adopt her. And they are still part of our family in the unique set of circumstances that is. So when our daughter says mom, you probably have to clarify which mom are you talking about. And it's not offensive or hard. It's part of who we are, having a very unique looking family. So then 4 months after she arrived, we said yes to our second placement. And they are 4 months apart from each other in age. So they're kind of sort of twins, but kind of weren't twins. And their styles of living life were insane. The way they both did life was like, it was like having twins, which I grew up with twin siblings that were younger than me. It was like doing that all over again on steroids. It was just insane.
When we were doing foster care for 2 years, we had the terrible twosome.
Oh, right?
And they were 1 day apart.
Oh.
See, but that, you probably didn't get as weird of looks when we would go to the grocery store with a 12-month-old and an 8-month-old, like you're saying. And people just look like,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how that's possible.
Well, at the peak of foster care, I don't even know how many kids we had at a time. I want to say we had 7 or 8 kids at a time. And we had a lot. And so when we would go to the store or go to a restaurant and, I need a table for 13. And they look at you like, how many of those are yours? They're all mine.
They're all
every single one of them.
Every single one of them. Yep.
Okay, so you adopted number 3, which is child number 4, and then stayed in foster care for a while?
Well, we got our second placement, who is 4 months younger than our third child. But actually, we were just plain their foster parents for 2 years.
Okay.
And then their cases ended up going to adoption around the same time. So we actually petitioned the judge to be able to adopt them in the same court hearing, which is very unique. So you have court case number this and court case number this. They typically stay divergent. They stay separate. But those two twins, which they're not twins, but we kind of refer to them as twins, their bond was so unique that the judge allowed us to adopt them at the same time. So in 2014, we adopted both of them. Wow. And our family grew officially to 6. And we actually had 3 other placements beyond our youngest 2 kiddos. But we closed our license, I want to say in 2016 or 17, recognizing that our biggest investment in the realm of foster care and adoption is our work with Blessed Hope.
Okay.
So we've been primarily providing, our mission there is helping families stay stronger for longer. And overcoming a lot of the challenges that both practically and spiritually as well as relationally, and fighting some of those discouragements. So that's what we've been doing ever since 2017, is focusing just on supporting our foster and adoptive families.
So that it seemed like the genesis was that coffee you had with other foster
Yeah.
and adoptive parents.
Yeah.
I know in
genesis,
the
I like
classes they talk about when you adopt or go into foster care, it's going to be one of the loneliest things you've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be for your experience because your family norm was adoption, but maybe it's still we felt. But there's this where people don't understand it,
Yeah.
right? And it's just strange. One guy that taught the class said he's going to write a book, how to win back the friends that foster care lost. I've heard it. Because it's
So
challenging.
true, though.
And so when you had that coffee, you just sensed, I imagine, it sounds like a kinship, a community that was unique and was
Yeah.
very vibrant and healthy and restorative for these
Yeah.
moms.
Yeah.
And that launched this trajectory of
Yeah,
helping.
it was super organic. That we never sat down and had a business plan. We never sat down and like decided really anything. We've pretty much gone with the natural growth of what our community was needing and asking for. I can't say that it wasn't lonely. We felt like, especially in those early years, we didn't know what we were doing. Like, we didn't know how to create a community that would accomplish. We didn't even have a mission statement back then. But we were leading in something that we were also doing.
Yeah,
And
that's great.
so we were creating things that we wished had existed for us.
Sure,
guess.
sure.
Well, that's how this whole thing of us was kind of formed. It was, there's a hole here.
Yeah.
Let's make something that fills us in here.
Yeah.
And it kind of naturally happened, like you're saying, organically. If you sat in a boardroom with a whiteboard, you might have come up with a lot different conclusions. Probably met more material needs of foster families,
Yeah.
when what they really needed was
Yeah.
relationship.
They need a family.
The other element of what Blessed Hope does is not just current foster and adoptive parents. I think you also encourage people to sign up, but when people are going through the adoption process, you provide services. I've been a beneficiary. Our family's we've benefited from that when we went through the adoption process, because that's another lonely, you've used the word awkward,
Yeah.
extremely awkward
Yeah.
time when you're navigating the relationship between the birth mom and the family and their parents and their grandparents and everybody who's involved in your own emotions. Is that part of the mission too?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah, we've
provide community there?
Yeah, we have supported several private adoptions over the years. We do a lot of one-on-one. I wouldn't even call it counseling, but just a lot of one-on-one. Each scenario, you can't come up with the different scenarios that each family has. Yeah. So naturally, how we have fallen in suit is that we've paid really close attention to our strengths and weaknesses. And my strength is I'm a conversationalist. I can't do anything like formal. If it starts to get polished or formal, I don't even know how to function, because remember, my name is Pistol. So I just need the on the ground, boots to the ground. I want to work with people in real situations. But something that we noticed pretty early on is that actually we just recently polled some of our foster families, and one of them used the term touchable to describe our organization. And that's not a very professional word. Like, if Jason described, his vocation as touchable, I'd be like, what's going on
It's
here?
a little sketchy there.
Right.
Yeah.
But to be an organization that's seeking to encourage foster and adoptive families and to help them stay stronger for longer, that they would describe us. They're not describing us as professional. They're not describing us as they're describing us in a way that they feel like they can sit down and talk like this. And that being able to sit within the mess of whatever is going on, because each is tailored to something, a different kind of mess. There's no blanket statement. I mean, there's stress is a blanket statement. Discouragement and loneliness, those are also very blanket statements. But beyond some of those things, everything is different for each family, whether it's an adoption story or a foster care story, or even we do a lot of having coffee and sitting with infertility families, because they're trying to decide, like, what is God asking of us? What do we want? And there's a lot of different options. So where do you go from here? Even those that have chosen foster care, there's still all sorts of different styles of foster care that you can do, different agencies that you can sign up with. And so it's just, there's no form sheet. There's no form sheet to sit in. It's just each
And isn't that what people need? I mean,
it's refreshing.
In their life,
Yeah.
people need, the word community keeps coming out, and we always talk about community. That's what people need.
Yeah.
That's what Jesus provided people. He just showed up. I don't care how messy, how dirty, how disgusting you are, you belong. And you read those stories and you see that's what we all really need at the end of the day. And that's what's always really attracted me to Blessed Hope, is this idea that we're not foster parents and haven't been, but I buy into that passion.
Yeah.
Because people just need to be met where they're at. And that's something that you guys really excel at.
Yeah.
And not just the adoptive and foster parents. You don't vilify the parents who, have neglected their kids and now they're in foster care.
No.
That's an important part. Is you're not just fostering and leading, guiding a kid. You're also trying to help model and do things with the parent.
I would say a value of ours is we aren't celebrating in any one particular side. We're looking to we are neutral. We don't work for any agency. We don't work for anyone. And by being neutral, we're able to meet physical, emotional, spiritual needs of all sides of foster care and adoption. So it doesn't matter how a story turns out. All of those sides are still represented in that child's story, and the child wins when all sides work together.
Oh, sure.
And that's
a great way.
That's a challenge.
That's a t-shirt.
That is a t-shirt right there.
That was, you nailed that one. That was good.
You did. Finish your thought there, and then we're gonna start winding down. That's a challenge.
Okay, sure. That's a challenge. Actually, I want to speak to something Thomas said, because it's something that we get a lot. The myth about foster care is that I can only help if I'm a foster or an adoptive family. That's the only way I can help. And that is actually so not true.
You really want that point to be made.
Yeah,
You
so
leaned
not
in.
true.
Leaned in.
Actually, Thomas, it is the small, we call them additional kindnesses at Blessed Hope, because it's the small things that are gifted to foster and adoptive families that keep them encouraged. It's the small, here's the drop off of Sonic. I know you had a really hard court hearing yesterday. Here's a drop off of Sonic. It's a neighbor that mows the lawn because they know they've been under a lot of strain. It's the community that shows up that there's nobody, like, legally. When a foster and adoptive family license their home and take in kiddos, legally, you have to go through a lot of hoops to take care of those kiddos for them. But there are so many other things that really are the oil that keep the machine of foster care going. And actually, foster care it's a man-made idea. It doesn't work well. It's awkward. It's broken. It's actually poorly functioning at best. But it's the initiatives of the people that learn to see those needs that actually create the movement of foster care initiative. It's not just the foster parents. So we need people like Thomas that care, that invite me to come to a group of guys and talk about foster care and family and awkwardness and things like that. So not just foster parents.
Well,
So we need people like Thomas and Elaine.
That's good. That's good. We're not letting Meadow off the hook if she's listening to this.
Oh, she should have been your first guest because she's
but
she's a different kind of spicy.
We're gonna get her on here
Pistol and
because
shotgun.
we need to dive more
Totally true.
into Blessed Hope. But we want to
Absolutely.
endorse, what you're doing. We see it. You guys probably have more of a personal connection to it in your families than I do. But we see what you're doing, and we endorse that and love it, and we appreciate it.
I do want to make one point here. You never mowed my yard, Thomas.
You know,
I was too busy moving your
we do
refrigerator.
joke a lot. So we actually, when we adopted our son, we had a party out here at the farm, and Billy and Thomas had walked with me through the ups and downs and downs and downs and then ups. And maybe I perceive them as downs because Billy started to have a saying, "What if everything turns out all right?" Or ends
What if
up-
everything goes right?
What if everything goes right?
You need to go read the
We got-
shirt.
Yeah. Well, it's upside down when I wear it. Because he said it so much that at the party he had printed up T-shirts for Lydia and I. Everything did go right. And even if his mom had chosen to keep him, that would have been right too.
Yeah.
But just that encouragement along the way. So yeah, there's a lot. Doing it on an island is a recipe for disaster.
Well, I do. I personally look forward to having another sit-down conversation with you and Meadow in the same room. But some things that just really, really jumped out at me as we're just talking about you is the word discouragement, the word awkwardness, uncomfortable, failed adoption. You didn't mention being investigated, which if anybody goes into the foster care realm and adoption realm, those are all things that could possibly happen. But circling back, we love until it hurts, and then it hurts no more.
Oh, yeah.
It's all that can remain is love, which you said didn't describe you as Mother Teresa, but I think it's a lot closer than you'd like to admit on air. So thank you so much for being here. It's been a blessing to hear your story. I texted my wife the other night. She's working opposite shifts with me, and I'm like, how many kids has she adopted?
It's okay.
I didn't know.
Well, now you know.
It's okay.
Now
you know.
Now I know.
And all the ones you've helped.
Yeah.
Oh,
all those
absolutely.
families.
Love it.
Absolutely. We
Love
have benefited from Blessed Hope greatly.
Yeah. Thank you.
And we're still part of it. I dropped off a bedroom set for someone just the other day.
I know. Thank you for doing that.
And man, it's just a community that just keeps going and going. And like that bedroom set that I dropped off, it's probably been in 3 other homes and has made its way back to mine each time. I don't know how it happens. But closing thoughts before we start to wrap up. I think we have Jimmy John's waiting on us.
I think some people they thrive with comfort. They thrive in security, and I think a lot of times, and we've talked about this on other episodes, but people strive for that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
Is to be comfortable. But personally, with you, I love that you thrive in awkwardness and uncomfortable and the words that Bill just mentioned, because there's got to be people like that are like, you know what, I'm going to put my waders on and we're going to figure this out. And that's what I think. You excel at that, and I'm anxious to get to know Meadow more because
She's not like that.
But I can see
she's not like that.
I can see the complimentary.
She keeps me fun. I'm really serious, and she is not really serious. So we ground
good.
each other out pretty well. But yeah.
So anyway, I admire that you're just willing, because that's what community is. That's what we always talk about when we show up here and have dinner. It's not always nice, easy conversations. It's difficult things that fills those gaps.
And it's messy.
It's
Community
always
is
messy.
Right?
Always messy.
It is messy.
T. Lund.
It's
Final
messy, but
thoughts.
it's memorable. As I was just thinking when you're saying people pursue comfort, and those days feel good. Maybe Saturday afternoon, taking a nap. But how memorable are they? And there's been some challenging things that you've been part of, but you've made significant impacts in people's lives, and it's probably made an impact on yours. And I'm guessing you wouldn't trade it, even though these adjectives are not, on the positive side.
Yeah.
The eternal, implications are significant, and I think that I consider it a gift when I've had that, and I bet you would too. And invite those who listen, step into that.
Yeah,
Step into it.
absolutely.
My last thing that I'm going to say about the whole subject is, we had some amazing times as foster parents and now as adoptive parents. We had some of the hardest times that life could throw at you through those as well. But one of the greatest gifts that it gave us was it gave my biological children and the foster children that are in our home, as we went through those trials, a perspective of life that I never could give them. a compassion that I never could give them, an empathy that there was no way that they were going to learn from me.
Yeah.
They everyone is a better person for going through that.
They also learn bad words from people, but that's okay.
Oh yeah.
Well,
There's some things that come in the home that you gotta
learn
clean
that
up.
from
And
Uncle
more.
Tyler.
But that's the story you always hear about foster care, and it's
Yeah.
fun to be able to share a different side.
Yeah,
You know, the life-giving side.
Yeah, our perspective on foster care is that, you know, we're working with families that are stressed. Most of the time things aren't going hunky-dory. Most of the time they're in crisis and they're in stress. But our perspective is that foster care is not, and it's not a journey just for the child and the well-being and the growth of a child. You're not just doing it to help them recover or keep them safe. That is part of foster care, but when you're doing it for the right reasons, it is meant to change you. Every child that comes in your home, no matter what their style of being in your home is, they're each designed to change you. And that imprint that they leave, no matter how long they're with you, that imprint is a gift. It changes you, and it wrecks you, and it remakes you in ways that give you a perspective on the world and on loving people and on building community and being authentic and touchable. That is, it's irreplaceable. You can't pay money for that. It's those little people. They can really do some damage on you, and I mean that in a really, really amazing way.
Absolutely.
And do you want to give up? Absolutely. Do you want to punch a wall? Absolutely. Do you want to revert to your room like Mr. Graves because it's stressful? Absolutely. Like, all of those things are yeses. But because of community, it's amazing that you can stay the course, you can stay the game, you can stay in the arena when you know that you're shouldering next to the Lunds or the Bristows or the Graveses or the Peepos or whoever it is. You're doing it together, and that changes the trajectory of what is possible through foster care and adoption. And that's not the goal, but it's part of it.
Go sign up.
Mic drop right there. Just mic
Buckle
drop.
up.
Just mic drop in. All right. Well, Leah, thank you so very, very much. And we do look very much forward. I'm such a man of words. We look very much forward to
Forward looking.
Why don't you wrap it up, Bill?
having another conversation
Let's talk about beef jerky.
with you and Meadow. Beef jerky, we're going to keep it quick here on the outro. If you want to know more about Primal Jerky, we had them on the last episode 13, and I did have to make a correction. Our bag count of beef jerky is we've had 97 bags of beef jerky. And they say it's the self-proclaimed best beef jerky in the world. I'm going to take away the self-proclaimed. That is the best beef jerky. I've been eating on that. That's what I've had for lunch every day this week.
I'm buying it, yeah.
Yeah, it is awesome. It is awesome. If you want to check them out, they have a Facebook page. It's at Primal Jerky. And they have a website, feedonprimal.com. We also have an internet presence. We have a Facebook page at the Humble Pursuit Podcast. We have a YouTube page. Don't know what it's called. I need to write that down in my notes one of these days. And we have a Twitter page at Humble Pursuit.
Tweet.
Hey, I tweeted again.
I saw that.
Oops, I tweeted. No, I'm not going to say it. Never mind. In closing, I think that Leah touched on everything that our little mission statement is. In her little story, never settle, never give up, live life with urgency to the fullest and in abundance, face our legacy every day, and remember, the only day guaranteed is yesterday. For Leah, Tyler, Thomas, and myself, God bless. We're out.